Prendergast, here with Gerald Ahrens. We're the directors of Como Energy, working with the Yarra Valley Community Power Hub. We are doing a quick presentation on community scale solar farms, including a example project we've been investigating with Yarra Valley Community Power Hub and also the Bunyip Community Energy Group, BRAG. So we are big fans of community scale solar farms, obviously. That's our core business and working on several projects. Why do we like them? They reduce emissions. So they are additional renewable energy generation assets that help us replace coal power stations. So tangible and real assets that achieve that goal. They're quite visible and prominent. We think they're an achievable scale. So they're big enough, say $2-3 million assets, where the revenues can cover costs like administration, insurance, operations and maintenance, but small enough that a community can help finance them at that sort of scale. And they can integrate with wider community plans, whether it be microgrids, reliability, and other means. In terms of the Bunyip project, we first were introduced to this project looking at the rec reserve, which hosts netball courts, tennis courts, sports clubs, and so on, about what they could do to reduce their reliance on the grid and reduce emissions. And we discussed an embedded network / microgrid on that project. But we also looked at that area to the south, which has been discussed as a potential solar farm site. And it's right next to the street, easy to connect to the grid and access, quite a rectangular shape and flat land. So we think it's quite suitable for the solar farm. Can get about 1 megawatt or so. Gerald will show some concept designs in a moment. The key thing that Como has found is that one of the biggest advantages for a project can be a willing landlord. And the land is owned by the Agricultural Society there, and they're well known to BRAG. So we see a high chance that they might be willing to host the solar farm and also be a patient and helpful landlord over time. There is still this concept of a microgrid for the rec reserve. We think that's possible. We think the solar and battery project at the Ag Society land is more achievable quickly. And if we did them both together, we might be able to do solar and battery in 1 to 2 years, but still be talking about the microgrid in 5 years. So we would recommend doing them possibly in parallel, but as separate projects. But certainly a microgrid is unviable on its own. But if it was supplied by this solar and battery project, it could become quite viable.
So one of the things that we've done, because it was somewhat of a blank slate as to how the solar farm could be structured, there was this block of land that is available. We just ran a number of different, very high-level concept designs over this project, looking at different inverter structures, central inverters, string inverters, different scales from 500 kilowatt to about 1 megawatt and slightly bigger. There's just a small selection of the ones that we evaluated to a certain extent.
So there are 4 options with different designs, are they, Gerald?
Yeah, but ultimately we ended up with yet another one. So this is design number, I think, 8 that we ultimately identified as our preferred one. It stays at just below 1 megawatt in order to make sure that the planning process can be conducted at the council level rather than going to state level. And it creates a relatively neat design, a relatively compact design between the road to the south of the rec reserve and sort of wrapping a little bit around that large dam that's on that property as well. So we are talking about 1 megawatt AC and DC. There's something that we still need to investigate, whether we could have some oversizing, but that probably goes beyond the scope of this presentation. And we're looking at potentially 2 hours of energy storage with a battery at, again, 1 megawatt capacity or 1,000 kilowatt capacity. And the annual generation that we expect here is about 1.5 million kilowatt hours, and that is equivalent to roughly 300 Victorian homes as an equivalent. Jonathan?
Yeah, in terms of the financials, we estimate a cost of around $3.2 million just for the construction. There will be some That includes development, but yeah, that's an early estimate. Annual revenues for the solar sales, electricity and LGCs of $110,000 per annum. Annual revenues from battery storage of around $200,000 per annum, and operational costs of around $40,000 per annum. So free cash flow of $260,000 per annum to repay the capital of the investment of $3.2 million and provide some additional profit for investors in the project.
Thank you. What we're now doing is really starting the development process, and that is work that is underway. It's very exciting to be on that road. We're obviously working with the landholder, the Ag Society, to see whether they can agree on granting an option for lease so that the site is secured for the project. That is the most important part. If you don't have land, you don't have a project. We are also commencing the process with AusNet in order to assess whether the grid connection is viable in that location. We're in the process of obtaining preliminary advice from Melbourne Water because it's in an inundation area. So we need to make sure that doesn't pose a problem for the project in the long run. And then in parallel, we'll start the community engagement and planning process in the Cardinia Shire Council area. And that's really all that we wanted to say on this project. It's squarely within what we do and what we know a lot of community energy groups want to do, building small solar farms and solar and battery projects. And it is just good to see how an idea was presented a few months ago in the Community Power Hub, and we're now on the road towards developing this project.
I think I'm quite excited by this project. I think if we got it investment ready, raise some seed funding or early funding for the construction from the local community and put it out to the broader Victorian community, we think there'd be great interest into funding the Bunyip Community Solar Farm. It'd be a great project. Obviously,
if you have any questions, do get in touch. My details are gerald@comoenergy.com.au and Jonathan is jonathan@comoenergy.com.au. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.